בקרוב תזרח השמש, נדע ימים יפים מאלה, הלב נלחם בדאגות. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה, הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. אור ארצי נחלתנו, לא תיפול כעת רוחנו, מסביב ברזל של חרבות. ויונה תפרוס כנפיים, התקווה בת שנות 2000, עוד נצא לשיר ברחובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה.
Good evening. My name is Shai Margulies, and I'm the president of Rock Shalom, a Jewish a cappella group from the University of Maryland. Tonight, we would like to dedicate our voices to the memory of Omer Balva, a beloved member of the Greater Washington Jewish community and a graduate of Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School. Omer fell defending Israel as a lone soldier last October. We would also like to dedicate our voices to those who have died, been taken, or need comfort after the events of October 7th. Please rise for the singing of Hatikvah.
Fatemi You may be seated. My name is Donnie Schwartz. We're about to sing a mashup between two Jewish prayers called Ikra and Olatz, originally performed by a group called Shalshelet. We hope this piece brings comfort, unity, and strength to Israel and the greater Jewish community at a time when it's needed the most. Our version was arranged by Shua Kanerek and Nira Dayanim, two alumni of Rock Shalom, and will be soloed by myself, Shai Margulies, and Elion Topolotsky.
Yishlach mi Good evening, Erev Tov. I'm honored to share a collective Kavana, an intention for this evening. Elohei Haruchot, God of every living spirit, allow us to breathe in your presence tonight in this great hall as we gather to observe the Yortzeit of October 7th, as we recall the brutality of the attacks on our people and the devastation and trauma that have followed over this past year. We who bear witness to the catastrophe of our generation turn to our source for strength and resolve, needing our hearts not just to be broken, but to be cracked open, allowing us to sense the possibility of a better future. Elohei Kol Basar, God of every living being, we dare not lose hope even as we are overcome with grief. Help us turn our mourning into dancing, undo our sackcloth and surround us with gladness. Leman yezamercha chavod velo yidom, that we may once more lift our voices in praise. Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka, and give thanks to your goodness again.
Good evening. My name is Gil Prus, and I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington. It is my honor to welcome you here tonight, community members, friends, and allies. I especially want to recognize elected officials from our region and national leaders from across the country who are here in solidarity with the Greater Washington Jewish community. We are gathered 3,000 strong in person and many thousands online. We are gathered to mark a year no one could have imagined. As we speak, Israel is engaged in conflict across and beyond its borders. 101 hostages remain captive in Gaza in unimaginable conditions. Israelis are under daily threat of missiles from Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and the Houthis in Yemen. And families and communities in the region and here at home continue to grieve the heartbreaking loss of innocent life. Locally, we have faced a shocking surge in anti-Semitism that has disrupted many parts of our lives, including our workplaces, schools, and even personal relationships. I wouldn't fault anyone for looking at the state of things and feeling distraught. The shock, the horror, the anger I felt, that we all felt after October 7th, still feels very present. The pain of that day has been inscribed in Jewish peoplehood and sealed in our collective Jewish memory forever. October 7th was just the latest, cruelest iteration of a pogrom, an organized massacre straight out of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. I can't help but see the shadows of the past casting themselves across the Jewish future. And yet I remind myself that unlike the previous century, today we have clear reasons for hope. Though Israel faces its most trying moments since its founding, it remains a miracle. A state that is not perfect. In fact, I cannot think of a single country that is, but one that has the responsibility and capacity to defend its citizens. A state that can struggle and debate and fail and thrive as its people seek to build their own future. A state where the Jewish people can define and shape our own destiny. And we here in Greater Washington are part of an incredibly strong American Jewish community, a vibrant Jewish community with our own rich, evolving traditions, culture, and institutions, even as we face rising levels of anti-Semitism and hatred in this country that few of us imagine would or could happen in our lifetimes. We must not lose sight of the Jewish people's ability, though, to respond and thrive. Since the darkest chapters of our history, our capacity and our agency as a people has only grown. Today, we can live proudly as Jews as we contribute our talents to this community, this country, and this world. Indeed, what we have built together in Greater Washington is truly remarkable. We are strong, we are resilient, and we are diverse. In this room, a room of thousands of people, we each come with our own aspirations, struggles, questions, and hopes. Most importantly, in these trying times, there are different viewpoints, different connections to the Jewish community and to Israel. We may not all agree with each other, and that's okay, because one way or another, we found ourselves here to this room, pulled by a common force to be together in community in this moment. Perhaps it's because we know as Jews it's our duty to remember, to process our pain and grief in the presence of one another, to honor everything and everyone we have lost, and to honor all the innocent people who lost their lives over the past year. Memory, after all, is a Jewish verb. We insist on looking squarely at our own story because we know that the past must help inform our future. We look back so that we can better carry our people forward. And so, as we observe the upcoming Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of 1,200 innocent men, women, and children, I call on us to take responsibility for their memory. I recently came across an interpretation of Jewish thought that says that when we lose a loved one, we become their representative in the world. Well, this year, we have lost many loved ones, which means we are now called more than ever to be a credit to their names. We may still be hurting, but our people, past, present, and future, are counting on us to move through the world with wisdom and integrity. They are counting on us to be life-affirming and to continue strengthening the bonds we share with each other, with our tradition, and with all those committed to building a more just and peaceful world. And so tonight, I invite you to join me on a journey from remembering what was lost this past year to reflecting on the resilience of our community and to the hope for renewal that allows us to move forward with strength and resolve. Thank you for being here and for everything you do for the Jewish people. May we help ensure that the memory of all those lost will be for a blessing. Thank you.
On October 7th, I experienced my worst nightmare.
אני הייתי במסיבה, כאילו בעצם הטילים, צבע אדום בשעה 6:30 בבוקר. נכנסנו למיגונית 50 אנשים בערך. חשבתי שאני הולכת למות שם.
Basically, these houses, one by one, the people were killed, the houses were burned after they butchered the families.
כשיצאנו מהבית, הבנו את גודל הזוועה. על השער היו המון גופות של אנשים.
We just, saying Shema Yisrael, we just davening because really we didn't have where to go. I just literally just stayed here in my house, locked ourselves in the kids' room, trying to calm them down.
The terrorists came and burned everything they could. They took away 10 tractors. They went through all the irrigation system and burned everything.
יש לנו כוחות פנימיים אדירים, ואנחנו מסוגלים לכל דבר. אנחנו קיבלנו מכה חזקה ומטלטלת, אבל מה שקורה פה זה בגדר נס.
As a teacher, I need to come and to take all my efforts to continue and working with my students. I can't just stop. The war is here, but we'll continue working.
I deeply believe in art therapy as a form of healing. What drives me to continue doing it is the gift I get every time I have allowed someone else to express themselves.
We want to bring, new people to work here, come into the kibbutz, and grow another generation of farmers in the kibbutz.
This is something that is happening to all of us. And we need each other. We need each other right now in order to get through it.
Every single Jew, no matter where you are in the world, is in this together, and we need you wherever you are.
We are one global community. We are one global family.
The strength of our community is when we are one.
Thank you for standing by us, and we're standing by you at the same time.
So let us send a message here tonight that we mourn, we grieve, we protect, but we will rebuild.
Please rise for El Male. El Male Rachamim Shochen Vamromim Hametzah במעלו קרושים וטהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמות כל אחינו ויחיותינו הקדושים אנשים, נשים וטף, זקנים עם נערים, שנרצחו בארצנו על קידוש השם. בידי מרצחים ארגוני הטרור ימח שמם ליד וזכרם לדיראון עולם. אבו שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמתם. לכן בר הרחמים יסתירם בצאתק כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרו בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, בגן עדן תמנוחתם. וינוחו בשלום המשכבם, ויעמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים.
My name is Ilana Ernst. I'm a high school student at the Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School. I wrote this poem for everyone we lost, for everyone who has come home, and for everyone we're still waiting for. They say many things about the morning you were stolen, like that the men who took you had hungry hands. When they found your mother's body, she had fingerprints all over her skin. They say that she died alone, that your brother and his love hid in a field for 2 days while the grass leaned in closer and closer until the sky disappeared and all they could see was smoke. They don't know where your father is, only that he once stood on the front porch with anger in the set of his shoulders and his back to the door. Once, your father stood on the front porch with you in his arms and sang to you about the moon. Once, your sister spilled paint on the steps and they were streaked purple for months. Once, in the spring, your mother took every cup from the kitchen cabinet and filled the bowl with poppy blossoms. She set the flowers down on the same steps, and after a while, you forgot how beautiful they were. Your sister wasn't home. She was in the mountains, learning the way her name sounded, spoken like a gunshot by boys with metal in their voices and girls with fire in their blood. Your sister wasn't home, so now she sits in a hotel room staring at the moon, and she is looking for you, but you are somewhere past a barbed wire fence. Maybe your mouth is open. Maybe you are begging for scraps of wind because you imagine that they have caressed home for you, have folded your brother into their arms, have let loose the tiniest smattering of rain atop your mother's grave because you weren't there to say goodbye. Maybe you blow constellations out of dust particles when the flecks gather too thickly on your bare knees. Maybe once you tire of the phantom stars, you send them upwards, away, like a flock of flickering eagles with a course set for open sky. Maybe there is no wind and no dust where you are, and you have already unwound too much string from the fraying holes in your jeans to tie onto hope or other flying things meant for home. Maybe you are shivering and the only thing left is a darkness so heavy that it is cracking your ribs. Maybe the men who took you have taken your voice too, have whittled it into a whisper, and maybe it all hurts so much that you have already sent half of yourself away to be with God. Maybe he will give you back to us, but maybe even God cannot save the ones who live as they die.
I'm Tzvika Sharabi, and with me is Alan Yelowitz. We are musicians at Adas Israel Congregation. We will share with you a song recorded in the debut album of Israeli singer-songwriter Shlomo Artzi in 1970. Every Israeli knows this song as a summer and symbolic piece of music. This lyrics plea for nothing more than for him to return home and promise that we don't need anything more than that. For many years, this song was a prayer for the safe return home of Israel's soldiers. And now we pray for the safe return of both soldiers and civilians. Tonight, we dedicate this song to the safe return of the 101 hostages held in crude captivity by Hamas in Gaza, and to our brave soldiers that are fighting in Gaza and Lebanon. If you know this song, please join us.
שמור מאור, כמעט ביקשנו לנו את הכל. את הגשם תן רק בעיתו, ובאביב פזר לנו פרחים, ותן שיחזור שוב לביתו, יותר מזה אנחנו לא צריכים. עקבנו 1000 צלקות, עמוק בפנים הסתרנו הנחה. כבר יבשו עינינו מלבכות, כמו שכבר עמדנו במבחן. את הגשם תן רק בעיתו, ובאביב פזר לנו פרחים, ותן לה להיות שנית איתו, יותר מזה אנחנו לא צריכים. כיסינו תל ועוד אחד, טעמנו את ליבנו בין ראשים, עוד מעט תפרוץ ההנחה, קבל זאת כתפילה מאוד אישית. את הגשם תן רק בעיתו, ובאביב פזר לנו פרחים, ותן לנו לשוב ולראותו, יותר מזה אנחנו לא צריכים. את הגשם תן רק בעיתו, ובאביב פזר לנו פרחים, ותן לנו לשוב ולראותו, יותר מזה אנחנו לא צריכים.
My name is Jonathan Dekelchen. I'm a member of Kibbutz Nir Oz, and I'm a professor of history at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. But I'm here with you tonight because Hamas took my son hostage on October 7th. We gather this evening amid a shared tragedy, united by grief over murdered friends, family, and brethren, and longing for the return of our loved ones. On October 7th, 1 year ago, hundreds of Hamas terrorists, together with many hundreds more civilian looters from Gaza, assaulted and destroyed my home, Kibbutz Nir Oz. I've lived on Nir Oz since 1981, raised my 4 children and 4 grandchildren there. It was a magical place of pride and ingathering for the family that I built since moving to Israel from Connecticut in 1981. 1 year ago, our unique, beautiful way of Jewish life was taken from us. We are now refugees in our own country. Hamas murdered on that day 51 of my community of a little more than 400 people and kidnapped another 79, including my beautiful 36-year-old son, Sagi. For those of you who are familiar with the kibbutzim, you know that all of these men, women, and children are part of my extended family. All of the Gaza envelope kibbutzim, like Nir Oz, shouldered the brunt of Hamas's savagery since it took over Gaza in a military coup in 2007. We, more than any other Israelis, know exactly what Hamas is and the importance of eradicating it as a governing and military body. 29 Nir Ozniks are still hostage in Gaza, and I come to you here as their voice. At least 9 of those 29 have already been murdered. Every additional day puts the rest in peril of execution by their Hamas captors or becoming tragic victims of friendly fire from the IDF. Ever since he was taken, I asked myself, what does Sagi know? Hostages who returned from Hamas captivity reported that news seeped into the Gaza hellholes where they were held. Does Sagi know that his wife and 2 young daughters, or anyone at all from Nir Oz, survived the massacre? Does he know that his youngest daughter, Shachar, Dawn in Hebrew, was born in mid-December? For her, Sagi is just a name and a photograph on the wall. Shachar, now 10 months old, is growing up without a father. Her first smile, her first words, all without him. Sagi's wife and daughters, along with many other wives and children from the remaining 101 hostages, face an agonizing reality every day. Their husbands and fathers are withering and dying in Hamas captivity. I wonder if Sagi knows that Israelis want all the hostages home now. Do he and the other hostages who are still alive know that their families have traveled to the ends of the earth to mobilize support? Do they know that millions of Israelis have rallied in the streets since October 7th to fight for their release? Do the hostages know how we've kept this fight non-political, joining hands with conservatives, moderates, and liberals in this campaign? Politics should not matter. The only thing that matters is getting Sagi and all of the 101 hostages home. The waiting for us families is unbearable. How long must we wait for the necessary steps to be taken by the intermediaries and the Israeli government to bring the hostages home from the clutches of evil? Hamas should have freed the hostages immediately and thereby saved the people of Gaza from immense suffering. And Hamas still should. Tragically, for the civilians in Gaza and in Israel, Hamas will never do this. No less ominous, the recovery in recent weeks by the IDF of the bodies of 12 murdered hostages, 4 of them my friends from Nir Oz. All of the 12 were alive for months in Hamas captivity. All this emphasizes that military action alone cannot free our loved ones. Every additional hour without an agreement is an hour stolen from the lives of the hostages and from their families. The Jewish people in the world have been powerfully reminded in recent weeks of the brilliance of Israel in defense of our country. Israel is especially powerful when we work in harmony and in common interest with the United States. Of that, there is no doubt. The rest of the world must reckon with a simple fact, horrifically demonstrated on October 7th. Anyone connected to Hamas is a monster and bears responsibility for the catastrophe that has befallen the people of Gaza. And yet, these are the terrorists with whom a deal must be made to meet our sacred obligation of pidyon shvuim, redemption of captives. That is perhaps the greatest Jewish value and has been practiced by our people for millennia. An agreement must be made with Satan, repulsive as that knowledge is to all of us. Sagi and all of the hostages deserve their lives back. In Israel, as many of you are aware, this most basic of moral imperatives and Jewish values has become politicized. We must not allow that to happen amongst American Jews. We must always stay true to the prioritization of human life, bringing fathers back to their children, daughters back to their parents, children back to their mothers and fathers, and family back together while we still can. That protection of Jewish lives, whatever the political cost to politicians, was the reason for Israel's independence in 1948. I pray, and I know you do as well, that Sagi and all the hostages know that we have not abandoned them. I cannot bear thinking that they might believe that they've been forgotten. The hostage families will never stop demanding that the world community, including the Israeli and US governments, get them home now. But we, the hostage families and our supporters in Israel, we need help. We need those with influence, those who care, like everyone in this room, to step forward to work with us. The urgency of the moment cannot be overstated or answered solely with prayer. The hostages are dying. The murdered hostages in shallow graves in Gaza may be lost forever if they are not returned quickly. We cannot allow another day of torture, rape, starvation, sickness, and the threat of death hovering over the hostages. To everyone that has supported us so far, thank you. To the Washington Federation and to the Federation system as a whole, as an evacuee in Israel and someone who has lost their home, I think, speak for tens of thousands in Israel in the deepest of appreciation. The work is still long and hard as we, as communities, try to figure out what comes next. Your solidarity, your compassion, and your generosity have carried us through incredibly dark times. But I need to ask for more. Dig deeper, fight harder, because I know your capacity to meet the obligation of pidyon shvuim, redemption of captives, is limitless, as our scriptures command us. Our loved ones, fellow Jews, must never become mere names, afterthoughts in a global conflict that they never asked to be a part of. I do not seek revenge. I seek justice. Justice for the hostages, for their families, for the simple right to be free and live in a Jewish state that protects its citizens, even when it requires political courage from our leaders. Justice for those brave men and women who are protecting our people in Israel. This This justice includes Jews everywhere who feel echoes of the current conflict. In the end, our fates are inextricably tied to one another. I stand before you this evening as an Israeli American, as a Jew, as a father, for you to carry my family's gratitude, our grieving, our anger, and our hope in your heart. Fight with us. Push for an agreement that brings our loved ones home and saves the soul of Israel. God bless you all.
My name is Rabbi Amy Schwartzman from Temple Road of Shalom, and after that moving and compelling speech, I offer a prayer for the safe return of our hostages. Misha Berach, Avotenu ve'imotenu, Avraham v'Sarah, Yitzchak v'Rivka, Yaakov, Rachel v'Leah, Mi sha'ana ledina b'veit inuya, LeYosef mibeit ha'asurim, LeDaniel begov ha'arayot, hu yivarech et kol hashfuyim v'hashfuyot, asher nechdefu bidei oyev, ve'et kol anedarim v'anedarot, ezrachim, chayalim, benot u'benei adam shenitunim b'tzara u'bishviyah. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Tsevaot, sheyishtapru mehera, mishbehem utchazeirem le'artzam, lemishpechotehem, velivtehem, beri'im ushlemim, begufam uvrucham, benomar amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel and Leah. May the one who answered Dinah in her torment, Joseph in prison and Daniel in the lion's den. God of Abraham, the first who was willing to risk his life for the release of prisoners and hostages. May this God bless the hostages taken captive by our enemy, all those missing and unaccounted for, citizens, soldiers, men, women, and children who are imprisoned and in grave danger. May it be your will, God of all, that they be released speedily and return to our land, to their families, to their homes, safe and sound in body and spirit. And let us all say, Amen.
My name is Avia Halevi, and I am the Shlicha at the Jewish Federation. As much as I try to, I can't forget the morning of October 7. I can't forget the feeling of losing my security, losing my hope, losing my mind for so many hours. I can't forget the bursts of fear and adrenaline as I scroll down the list of survivors from the Nova Music Festival, trying so desperately to find information about my younger brother, Nati. He just wanted to dance and celebrate life. I can't forget my relief when we found him safe in body, nor can I forget the worry when I began to think what he must have been through. Most days I try so hard to forget the following weeks of uncertainty, how scared and guilty I was to leave my country only 2 weeks later to be a shlicha here, along with my husband, Avi. But I can't forget. I remember. I choose to remember the sun reflected on the beautiful fields on the border of Gaza as I drove to school. I choose to remember the serenity I felt every day. I choose to remember my friends who sacrificed their lives and those who sacrificed their bodies and their mental health. I choose to remember the hostages, our brothers and sisters still captive in the hands of pure evil. It's not easy to remember through such tremendous loss, but I choose to find again the spirit of hope and even dare to spread it. I choose to remember the values that led me into this shlichut, to deepen the connection between Israel and global Jewry, and the community here, to be a bridge.
My name is Din Baghdadi, and I'm the Shaliach at the Poses JCC in Northern Virginia. It was 11:28 at night on October 6th. My wife Rotem and I were still awake. We were watching TV when we began to see the rocket alarms on the screen. Then the video started showing. We watched the news straight through the night, not believing our eyes. My family lives in the south of Israel, most of them in Beersheba. Some of them lives in Givim, right next to Gaza. My family waited for 14 hours in their safe room before they were rescued. We watched our friend Noah being dragged screaming to Gaza. Later, we learned that my friend Yotam lost both of his parents, and that the husband of Klil, another friend of mine, was killed defending Sderot. My first thought was to go and help. My unit was drafted. My friends were drafted. That day, everyone I knew was either in shelter, drafted, taken hostage, or worse. My heart was torn, but I chose to stay. And I had to make that decision every day that year, this year. So did each and one of the 11 members of our delegation of Shlichim for the Greater Washington. Some of us did return for service and came back since. Every Israeli carries the experience of deep grief and personal loss daily. It will always be a part of us.
As community shlichim in the Greater Washington area, we channeled our pain and loss into action in our work. We found deep meaning in creating opportunities for our local Jewish community here to contribute, to connect more deeply with Israel. And you were there, Bayachad, together. This community gathered on the National Mall in support of Israel with 300,000 of our friends. We talked about Israel and learned about our difficult reality this year. You opened your homes to displaced Israelis. You heard us when we talked about our mutual struggles and pain. We felt this community stepping up and supporting us.
Seeing this community gathers around us. Count us as part of you. Gather around Israel. Seeing the global Jewish people was an inspiring demonstration of the unity of Am Yisrael. That sense of resilience is one of the things that will always made me proud to be an Israeli. To keep going, even when it's dark. And today, it makes us both proud to be part of this community, the Greater Washington Jewish community, to be Jewish. Am Yisrael Chai.
Please welcome back to the stage Rock Shalom, joined by the Melvin J. Berman Hebrew Academy's Matanots. Please welcome the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, Ron Halber.
Good evening. Today, for the first time since that horrific day a year ago, the calendar says October 7. But for our community, in many respects, every day is October 7th. The war continues and is now being fought on multiple fronts with no clear end in sight. Israel did not ask for this war, and we yearn for the day when peace can finally be achieved. The painful sense of loss remains profound as we continue to mourn the 1,200 beautiful souls who lost their lives on that fateful day exactly 1 year ago. Our hearts continue to break for the families of the hostages whose loved ones are still being held hostage. We will leave no stone unturned as we continue to fight for the release of everyone who remains in captivity. October 7th will forever be etched in the collective Jewish consciousness. We will forever mourn the deaths of our brothers and sisters so brutally and mercilessly taken from us. But we refuse to let them be defined by how they were slaughtered. Rather, we choose to remember who they were as people and the light they shined on their families and communities. We owe it to them and to their families and to ourselves to remain resilient and not to let this savage attack define who we are as a people. Because even though the world has changed for us, even though the world changed for us that day, some things must never change. We must continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel as they face ongoing attacks from terrorist enemies on all sides. We have rallied and marched. We have rallied and marched to defend Israel's ironclad right to defend its people, gathered at vigils to mourn those taken from us, spoken at embassies to get the job home, to get the hostages home, and lobbied government officials to defeat scores of anti-Israel and anti-Jewish resolutions. Yes, we are proud Jews and supporters of Israel, and no, we will never let anyone take away that badge of honor from us. We must defend and support the Jewish people here at home. Over the past year, the JCRC has pushed relentlessly to increase security funding for synagogues and other institutions to allow our families to gather and worship in peace. And we have fought the surge in anti-Semitism in our schools and campuses with everything we've got. We must help raise the next proud Jewish generation. That is why we have trained and empowered thousands of local students to talk about what it means to be Jewish and how the situation in Israel impacts their lives. We must remain engaged with our interfaith partners to ensure that we create a resilient American society that rejects anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, and all forms of discrimination, and that families of all backgrounds and faiths feel safe, supported, and loved. This is who we are, a resilient and determined people who, despite everything that's been thrown at us for thousands of years, remain hopeful that a better future is ahead, one where no more innocent lives in the region will be lost, and that everyone throughout Israel and the entire Middle East will know peace. On this solemn day and every day, we remember who we lost, but we also remember that their memories are a gift and that their example lives on. Thank you. It is now my great privilege and honor to introduce His Excellency Michael Herzog, Israel's ambassador to the United States. Whether as a diplomat, a general, peace negotiator, or scholar, Ambassador Herzog has devoted his life to supporting the Jewish community and strengthening the state of Israel. We are deeply honored to have him with us here today. Ambassador.
Thank you. This is a solemn event of remembrance. I want to thank the JFNA for putting this together, and I want to thank all of you for being here in this amazing, incredible show of solidarity. Here with us today are also families of hostages. To them, I want to say, you are always in our hearts and on our minds. On October 7th, at 6:28 a.m., the earth shook, the world froze, and our lives changed. This is one of those watershed events that divide history to before and after. And definitely, Israel of before and after are two different countries. Each and every one of us remembers where they were on that Black Saturday, much the same as Americans remember where they were on 9/11. This has been the longest and the toughest war in Israel's history since its inception in 1948. There are many ways in which we can analyze this war and many ways to tell the story of this war. But I want to first focus on the main story that explains why we, Israelis, regard this as an existential challenge. Simply put, following the carnage of October 7th, all of our enemies in the region and globally smelled the blood, sensed weakness and vulnerability on our side, and rose to hit us. That event fed their appetite to destroy Israel. And that explains why we've been confronted by not only Hamas, but by the whole Iranian axis, with Hezbollah joining on October 8th, the Houthis in Yemen, over 1,000 miles away, joining soon after, and then the whole Iranian axis and Iran itself. That is why Iran, that never fought Israel directly, always fought us to the last proxy, hit Israel twice with massive direct missile attacks. They would never contemplate such an attack were it not for October 7th and their perception that Israel is weak, vulnerable, and that they can get away with it. And that is why the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust triggered an unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism. It triggered an international campaign against both the Jewish people and the Jewish state, denying the Jewish people's right to self-determination, denying the Jewish state's right to self-defense, targeting Jewish communities, and questioning the importance of Israel in Jewish identity. And all of that erupted mere hours after October 7th and weeks before we launched our ground operation into Gaza. We understand that if we do not prevail in this war, we will not be able to lead normal lives as a free people in our country. And so the people of Israel rose to fight for their lives. 1 year on, the story of this war is also that of Israel rising to its feet, turning the tide, restoring its deterrence, and dismantling the ring of fire that Iran has built around us. Consider, on October 7th of last year, Hamas launched 4,300 rockets at Israel. On October 7th of this year, Hamas launched 4 rockets, and not because they did not want to launch more. And we are now in the process of seriously degrading Hezbollah, the #1 Iranian proxy. We are denying them the ability to invade Israel, the same as Hamas did on October 7th, and we are weakening the whole axis. And I can't tell you how many messages I get from people in the region, in the Arab world, who privately congratulate us for taking on Iran and the Iranian axis. A long and arduous path is still ahead of us, but we can already see some opportunities amid the big tragedy of this war. My friends, all of this we have done by ourselves. We have never asked for anyone to fight or die for us. We invested our own blood, sweat, and tears, and we paid a very heavy price because we have no alternative. Today, We owe the United States deep gratitude. We have received from the US administration significant material and political support. They have stood with us against repeated Iranian aggressions, and they have stood with us in the face of anti-Israel blood libels in the UN, in the ICC, and in the ICJ, and they have stood with us in the efforts to release our hostages. Our alliance withstood the pressure of this war, and we do not take it for granted. I also want to thank the US Congress on both sides of the aisle, and no less important, the American people. Notwithstanding the noise we all hear outside, the majority of the American people are with us because and they are with us because they know what is at stake, because they can tell good from evil, because they know that Israel's enemies are for the most part the enemies of the US and the free world, and because they understand that when we will prevail, it will be for the benefit of the free world under the leadership of the United States of America. The story of this war is also a human story. What unfolded over the past year was tragic. Over 1,200 Israelis were murdered on October 7th. Many more have paid with their lives ever since. Hundreds were kidnapped, mutilated, abused, and tortured. Captive hostages were executed in cold blood. Yes, we are a nation in trauma. There are also losses of innocent lives on the other side, and we do not ignore them. We remember the Jewish teaching that we are all created in the image of God. The loss of innocent human life, Israeli, Palestinian, Lebanese, or other, is a tragedy. But our war is not against innocent people. It is against bloodthirsty terrorists that turn them into human shields. The trauma of our nation is all the more deepened by the fact that there are still 101 hostages held in captivity in Gaza. This is an open wound in our society that will not heal until we bring them back home. And it is a moral and human obligation of every one of us to do what we can to bring about their return. We expect every person of conscience, of humanity, to call on Hamas to let our people go. My friends, my brothers and sisters, in these dark days, we can draw strength and hope from the history of the Jewish people that always managed to rise from the ashes and build anew, and from the amazing resilience of the Israeli society that shined in its darkest moments, rose to the challenge, and exemplified the truly unbreakable spirit of Israel. And we draw strength from the solidarity among the Jewish people. And I want to thank you, all of you, and all the federations for the incredible work that you are doing. You have no idea how meaningful this is to the people of Israel and how much strength the people of Israel draw from what you do and from who you are. You embody the core Jewish value of Kol Israel Arevim Ze Baze. We are responsible for each other. So I take this opportunity to thank you from the bottom of my heart, in my name, and in the name of the people of Israel. I am confident that with this spirit, with the unity and solidarity among our people, with faith and perseverance, and with the help of our friends, and first and foremost, the United States of America, we will ultimately prevail. On this somber day, we feel the pain, we bow our heads and our flags in memory and honor of the fallen. We renew our vow to bring our hostages back. We hug the families, and we express our deep gratitude to our greatest ally in the US. And we pray that pain, darkness, and tragedy that we feel today will soon be replaced with light, life, and hope for a brighter future. We are now in Yamim Noraim, days of awe, the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. For us, for our people, the whole last year was Yamim Noraim. So as a new year sets in, the traditional Jewish blessing is ever more meaningful. תכלה שנה וקללותיה, תחל שנה וברכותיה. Let the curses of the past year end, and let the blessings of a new year begin. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Joe Levin Manning. I serve on the board of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington, as well as other community engagement organizations in Washington, D.C. I'm here to share what has given me hope during this time of immense pain, a time where so many of us are looking for a light amongst the darkness. I find inspiration in Jewish teachings like L'dor v'dor, from generation to generation, and you are not required to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. These teachings remind us that every generation builds on the work of those that came before, and that continuing effort and striving for more is what we have to do. What gives me hope is the diversity I see in our community in each growing generation. We don't talk about it enough, but this diversity, it gives us strength. It strengthens our traditions, it enriches our community, and makes us stronger. Our tradition also teaches us to question and to explore new perspectives. I find hope in seeing young people challenge the norms of the past, embrace change, and take bold risks to create a better future for all of us. And I have hope for that future, for a world where safety is a right simply because one exists, no matter who they are or where they come from. I've never believed in doing things just because that's how it's always been done. Ironic, I know, as a Jew who just quoted some ancient text, but I believe that true progress requires our community to, our willingness to evolve and to push boundaries. And in our shared commitment to Tikkun Olam, the duty to repair the world, it will come from the generation that understands that our right to safety and dignity should be a given. This past year has been a powerful reminder of why that progress is essential. Because we cannot fix systems that are designed to exclude. The Jewish community is diverse and multifaceted. For many of us, we saw that in both positive and painful ways, and in ways that no one should have to decide to prioritize one part of their identity at the expense of another. From both within and beyond the Jewish community, Jews were pressured this year to declare only one facet of their identity. Some have used phrases like, "I'm not white, I'm Jewish," which can force others in a position where they feel like they might be pressured to choose one aspect of who they are. But I, like many, many young Jews, say, no, I will not choose. I am Jewish, I am gay, I am black, and I am many wonderful other things, and I find strength and hope in embracing all of who I am. There is no greater strength than the diversity of our community, and I find hope in how we are evolving to create space for all of us and all of who we are. As with each generation becomes more diverse, the ways we connect must also evolve. Let us combine the wisdom of our ancestors with the creativity and courage of future generations. Our future lies ahead, and that's where we can find our hope.
I'm Molly Bowman. I'm a granddaughter of an Auschwitz survivor, the managing director of Living Links at the USC Shoah Foundation, a member of NextGen at the Jewish Federation, and the former president of Jewish Women International's Young Women's Impact Network here in DC. As a proud young member of this community, I am hopeful tonight because you all always show up. My life is rich with role models in our community who teach me how to repair the world every single day. And tonight, I see thousands of you. No matter how full your plates, you always have another seat at your table, another hour to volunteer, and another dollar to give, and another night to show up. There are 3,000 and something people in this room. We have different backgrounds, different financial circumstances, different careers, different politics. In another room on another night, we might argue about what's best for Israel's future, or dismiss each other based on where we get our news, or lose trust in one another for voting a certain way this November. But tonight, even if we haven't met, I know you. I know that it could have been you and me dancing together at the Nova Festival. I know you've questions, even just for a second, as I have, if it's safe to wear your Star of David necklace on the subway. Even though I never met them, I know your grandparents and their bomb shelter in Haifa. They are my grandparents too. I know your cousin who hung her mezuzah on her dorm room doorpost and then was forced to answer for the actions of a government thousands of miles away. She is my cousin too. I know your friend from camp, still held hostage in Gaza. He is my friend too. Your heartache is my heartache, and your fear is my fear, and your grief is my grief. And so we show up for each other. Our Judaism commands us not to say Kaddish without a minyan, and so we gather so no one mourns alone. Tonight, we are a minyan over 300-fold. We came in search of community and connection and commemoration, but we each brought what we came looking for. I am hopeful because all of us showed up so that none of us had to mark this yard site alone. We observe this anniversary of October 7th, the same week we hear the Unatana Tokef, the prayer that reaffirms our ephemerality as we ask, who shall live and who shall die? I'm reminded this holiday, as I have been every single day for the last 12 months, that though life is fragile and life is fleeting, the impact that we make while we're here lives on, especially as we continue to bear witness. As long as we keep sharing our stories and our spaces and our time and ourselves with each other, no matter our differences, I will keep having hope. Thank you for showing up, and by doing so, adding another link to our chain that is strong enough to brave whatever comes next.
Good evening. I am joined this evening by my cantorial colleagues from across the greater Washington region. We all pray for Am Yisrael, and especially the hostages, to be able to lie down in peace at night and awaken to life in the morning.
Hi, my name is Tamal Todd, and I am a senior at GW. I'm Jewish and American Israeli, and last year was the worst year of my life. It was the first time that I felt my personal safety and my very existence challenged by peers in my classes, by friends I had over for dinner, and by childhood playmates who I used to have sleepovers with.
My name is Sam Loiterstein. Last October was my first semester of college at GW. Studying for my first set of midterms and mourning friends I had lost on the 7th, I saw our school library illuminated by the messages, "Glory to our martyrs," "Free Palestine from the river to the sea," and that my tuition was funding a genocide in Gaza.
I was gutted. I didn't go a day without crying, weeks blurred together. I obsessively checked the news, hoping that I wouldn't recognize cities and names and faces in the headlines. In the months following October 7th, I lost friends, I lost community, and I felt that an integral part of my identity was unwelcome on campus.
I was not allowed at parties because I am a Zionist. A classmate threw a Holocaust survivor's memoir off my bookshelf because I am complicit in another Holocaust. I was cussed at and called slurs on the street by strangers because people saw me wearing my late Bubby's Chai necklace. A key part of my identity was put on a pedestal, exposed for others to tear apart. I felt vulnerable. I wanted to feel strong and be a shoulder for others to lean on. But I struggled to embody my Jewish identity as a source of my strength, not an obstacle, definitely not a burden.
Despite the fear and pain of the last year, I know that we grow when challenged. We've both become stronger people. I found unimaginable strength in my friends, my family, and in the Jewish community, and I found power in letting others leave my life when they weren't there for me in the ways that I needed. I went to Hillel for the first time last year when an encampment on campus drove me to seek support. There, I found a new connection to my Jewish community. I found friendship with other Jewish students that were struggling too, including Sam, who has now become a pillar of support and understanding in my life. We now have weekly dinners together. My new friends listen to my bad Israeli music without too much complaint. And when something happens to our community, good or bad, they're the first people I go to. I also found strength in friends outside of the Jewish community, friends who stood with me at vigils, who drove across town at 1 a.m. to hold me while I cried after more bodies were found. Friends who cared for me when I didn't have the strength to do it for myself.
People stepped forward unexpectedly. Right after the 7th, I avoided Jewish events, mostly to avoid my own emotions. But the people who care noticed. So one day, on a whim strongly suggested by my parents, I walked into Hillel. I stumbled upon people like Tamar and an incredible community whose warmth and whose strength pulled me out of the darkness. In the face of rampant hate, I found a community that values life, dialogue, and most importantly, empathy. Their support empowered me to reclaim my Jewish story, to share their collective resilience, to create my own form of resistance and renewal. Our next steps have never been more clear: educate, connect, empathize. I will continue to work at BBYO where I can model the strength of these values for young Jewish people and be supported by strong Jewish role models and peers. And I will listen to others' experiences and be a source of support and strength no matter what.
My dad recently reminded me how I worked hard to make changes and create a system of support to help me when I get knocked down. I leaned further into my identity rather than shying away from it. I relied on the unwavering support of my family, my friends, and my people to give me strength when I didn't feel strong. I will never again allow myself to be paralyzed the way I was on October 7th. Like me, our community will continue to move forward, to grant one another strength, because we lift one another up, even and especially during times when it's difficult to stand on our own.
I am proud of who I am. And today I commit to upholding my Jewish identity with the same strength and resilience of my family and ancestors before me. Despite all of the noise out there, we will persevere, honoring our culture while forging a path forward. On your way home tonight, I encourage you to stop and take a second to look up at the stars as God commands us to do. As countless and as enduring as all of the stars in the sky, so shall our descendants be.
Thank you for bearing witness tonight. Am Yisrael Chai.
My name is Sarah Hurwitz, and I'm a former White House speechwriter and the author of Here All Along, a book about rediscovering Judaism as an adult. So a few months after October 7th, I went on a group solidarity trip to Israel. Now, I expected that the Israelis we met would be traumatized, and they were. I expected that they would be grieving and heartbroken, and they were. What I didn't expect was that they would be funny, but they were. There was the young man who lost his brother in a massacre at their kibbutz, who told us that he was heading to the US for a speaking tour. I hope, he said, to convince people in America to be only as anti-Semitic as absolutely necessary. There was the disaster relief expert who briefed us on his work, and when someone mentioned anti-Semitism on campus at Berkeley, he replied, "Yes, Berkeley, another kind of disaster area." And then there was the soldier I spoke to, who after I described the agenda of our trip, visits with attack survivors, IDF widows, hostage families, he replied, "Ah, so you are on sad birthright." I felt like each of them was telling us, we are not going to drown in our trauma and our grief, and you all better not either. I saw something similar. Here at home as I visited students at 20 different campus Hillels, including at GW. Now, I expected the students would be scared and angry, and they were. And the stories they told me were horrifying and left me deeply shaken. But they were funny too. There was the young woman who told me that she runs a campus dance troupe, and one of the dancers quit and tweeted, and I quote, "Just quit my Zionist-led dance troupe." True story. But this woman retorted, "Please, as if I was making them dance to Hatikva." And then there was the young man who, after recounting all of the abuse he had gotten from his classmates, said, "And you know what I'm going to do?" His tone made me a little nervous, so I asked, "What are you going to do?" And he replied, "I am going to be the loudest, proudest, most awesome, Jewiest Jew they have ever seen." During these visits, I gave a lot of thought to a sermon that Rabbi Aaron Alexander gave at Addis, Israel, shortly after October 7th. He talked about how our ancient rabbis had asked, when a wedding procession and a funeral procession reach an intersection at the exact same time, which one goes first? Now it seems, he said, like one of our sages' absurd hypotheticals. This intersection scenario would never actually happen. But for the past year, That's exactly what's been happening. Weddings crashing into funerals. Jews in Israel and across the globe trying to hold on to so much grief and so much joy all at once. I thought about this the other day when I was on a Zoom with an Israeli who told me that her niece was about to get married. We weren't sure when this was going to happen, she said. Her father was killed last October. Hearing this, my heart just broke. But seeing the look of sadness on my face, she said to me, "Sarah, this wedding, it's a good thing." And that was actually our ancient rabbis' answer. They ruled that when the wedding and the funeral meet at an intersection, the wedding must go first. The joy goes first. We carry our grief with us, but we move forward in hope. And that, I think, is why we are all still here, still uttering the same prayers we offered in our ancient temple in Jerusalem 2,000 years after it was destroyed, still painting street signs in Tel Aviv with the same letters we etched into parchment all those centuries ago. Our history, it turns out, is filled with the unexpected. That guy who I met at that kibbutz, who lost his brother, he texted me this past April to wish me a happy Passover. It was when Iran was launching missiles at Israel, and it was just too much. So he and his family had fled to Europe. And he wrote to me, "Tomorrow, I'm taking a train to my friends in Germany. Crazy times, but we are in a luxury refuge in Europe. Can't complain too much." Could any of our parents or grandparents have imagined a Jew seeking refuge in Germany? But the truth is that we don't know what the future holds, and it has been a very hard year. And I know that many of us, including me, have wondered if Jews still have a place in America, if we still belong. And I want to end by sharing with you what I think, for now, is my answer. I recently attended a Jewish Warrior Weekend conference that took place at West Point Military Academy, and it was attended by Jewish cadets from the academies of all 5 branches of the US Armed Forces. The event was held in a synagogue on West Point's campus. That's right, there is a synagogue at West Point. And on the walls of that synagogue are the names of every Jew to graduate from West Point, dating back to Simon M. Levy, class of 1802. There was also a display listing Jews who'd received the Medal of Honor, starting with Abraham Cohn, recognized for his service in the Civil War. The day was filled with panels and speeches, and the Shabbat service that evening was quite boisterous. Cadets were pounding the pews and clapping and singing, but it was also somber as a cadet paid tribute to Hirsch Goldberg Polin, the young American held hostage for nearly a year before being murdered by Hamas. And this cadet said that he would be dedicating his service to Hirsch's memory. Everywhere you go at West Point, there are these old portraits of soldiers from the past, and they're all wearing their signature gray uniforms. And as the Jewish cadet who'd organized the event closed out the day, she spoke about what it means to her to be part of this long gray line. All those generations of heroes who came before her, who put their country first, and who sometimes paid with their lives. And I have to tell you, I just marveled at how these extraordinary young people carry their ancestors with them, both Jewish and American, and how they embody the very best of both. So this is my answer. Make no mistake, we belong here in America, and we belong over there in Israel, and we are not going anywhere. God bless America, and Am Yisrael Chai.
Sarah, thank you for that moving reminder of what can come next if we build together. Now is the time to lean into community more than ever. I invite all the members of clergy who are here with us this evening to join us on stage for a closing prayer and song.
Thank you all for joining us tonight on this shared journey of remembrance, resilience, and renewal. Your presence affirms our collective strength.
This evening was a powerful reminder of how far we have come, from shock and grief to strength and unity, and now to address new challenges together. As we begin the Jewish New Year, we're reminded that the journey is not only behind us, but ahead of us too. Let us leave tonight ready to take action to honor the memories of those we've lost. Let us move forward, committed to each other and to shaping the future together.
We invite Rabbi David Wolkenfeld to join us here for the closing prayer.
At a time of war, remember that our ultimate goal is one of peace. Please open your hearts as I recite a prayer of peace inspired by Rav Nachman of Breslov. Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu, shetivatel milchamot u'shvichut damim min ha'olam v'tamshich shalom gadol v'nifla ba'olam v'lo yisu od goy el goy cherev v'lo yilmedu od milchama rak yakiru v'yedu kol yoshvei tevel ha'emet la'amito asher lo banu lezeh ha'olam b'shel riv u'machloket v'lo b'shel sinah v'kina v'kintor u'shvichat damim רק באנו עולם כדי להכיר ולדעת אותך תתברך לנצח וכן יהי רצון ונאמר Amen. May it be your will, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, that you should eliminate wars and bloodshed from the world and extend a great and wondrous peace to the world. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, nor shall they learn war anymore. Rather, may all the inhabitants of the world recognize and know the essential truth that we have not come into this world for strife and contention, nor for hatred, jealousy, and dispute or bloodshed. Rather, we have come into the world in order to recognize and know you, blessed be you forever. And so may it be your will, and let us say, Amen.
My name is Cantor Sydney Michaely, and I'm one of the clergy at Temple Rodef Shalom in Falls Church, Virginia. Together with all the members of the clergy here tonight, we invite you to join us in singing Olam Chesed Yibaneh, a beautiful song written by Rabbi Menachem Creditor with words taken from the book of Psalms. The music expresses the hope that our children will grow up in a world that we build with love. Please rise and join us if you're able.
Chesed
תזרח השמש, נדע ימים. בקרוב תזרח השמש, נדע ימים יפים מאלה, הלב נלחם בדאגות. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה, הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. אור ארצי נחלתנו, לא תיפול כעת רוחנו, מסביב ברזל של חרבות. ויונה תפרוס כנפיים, התקווה בת שנות 2000, עוד נצא לשיר ברחובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי,